Today, we also confer an honorary degree upon Donald Triggs, an acknowledgement of his accomplishments as a visionary businessman and a vintner who has transformed the Canadian wine industry on a national and international scale. As one of Western's most prominent and active alumni of the Ivey School of Business, both on a personal and professional level, he embodies the qualities that Western seeks to instill and cultivate in its graduates. To present our distinguished candidate, I now call upon Dr. Paul Beamish, Richard Ivey School of Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. Donald Triggs. Donald Triggs is a visionary businessman and vintner who has transformed the Canadian wine industry on both the national and international stage through his leadership, innovation, and big picture thinking. For those of us who started university in the early 1970s, the quality of most Ontario and Canadian wines then was, in a word, awful. The native Labrusca grape, found here and along the eastern part of North America, was great for making grape jelly, but not as the basis for quality wine. As a result, most Canadians relied on wines from the old world countries of Europe, such as Italy, France, and Spain, or on the wines from so-called New World locales like Australia, South Africa, Chile, and California. By 1989, the Canadian wine industry was still struggling to remain viable, and many in the industry concluded that there was no future to winemaking in Canada. Don Triggs, however, saw opportunity and pooled his money together with a business partner to purchase a failing wine business. Don was confident that with the right viticulture practices and winemaking technology, it would be possible to produce world-class wines here in Canada. Don and his wife Elaine purchased a 100-acre orchard in Niagara-on-the-Lake in 1998 and converted it into a vineyard, using it as a research project that ran all the way through to 2006 and explored effective viticulture techniques for growing high-quality grapes in the Niagara Peninsula. Viticulture, or grape growing, involves a complex interaction based on soil type, sunlight, temperature, and water supply. When coupled with enology, the science and study of wines and winemaking, it requires detailed research and experimentation to produce a quality product, far more than most consumers appreciate. And like any research-active university professor, Don Triggs understood the need for such knowledge. The company that he co-founded in 1989, Jackson-Triggs, went on to become the most powerful wine brand in Canada. Many varietals were introduced. The quality of wines grew rapidly. Renamed Vincor International, it went through a series of strategic mergers and acquisitions and was publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Don understood that to have real impact, both high-quality products and scale was necessary. At the time of its acquisition by Constellation Brands in 2006, and in a global industry with many thousands of wine producers, Vincor was the 14th largest wine producer in the world. Following the acquisition of Vincor, Don continued to follow his entrepreneurial passion in the wine business, so he and Elaine founded Culmina Family Real Estate Winery in South Okanagan, British Columbia. Later joined by their daughter Sarah, the new state-of-the-art winery was completed in early 2013. I've been a business professor in this country for over 35 years, and I would be hard-pressed to name even a handful of people who have transformed an entire industry in Canada for the better. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and in the name of the Senate, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, upon Donald Triggs.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Congratulations, Dr. Triggs. Well done. Congratulations. Dinner tonight. We'll have some more. On behalf of all assembled here today, I should now like to invite our newest alumnus, Dr. Donald Triggs, to address Convocation.
Thank you, Chancellor Cowan, President Shakma, Dr. Paul Beamish, faculty members, graduates, and distinguished guests. Paul, thank you for those very generous comments. The case of wine is on the way. I would like to open by saying how humbled I am to receive this great honor. Paul, I am deeply honored to receive this introduction from you, having seen firsthand the incredible contribution you have made to the global marketing and business community. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think this might happen to me. I gratefully accept the Doctor of Laws degree on behalf of the many extraordinary people who have touched my life in so many positive ways. My immediate thoughts go back to my parents and family. My late mother, Margaret, inspired me to believe in myself, to chase my dreams, as she said. One of her favorite sayings was, and I'll never forget it because I heard it many times, "Can't is a coward, too lazy to try." My late father, Jack, brought discipline, hard work, and the motto that if a job is worth doing, it is worth doing well. I appreciate his high standards and integrity more every day. I would also like to mention a few of the many teachers who have left an indelible mark on my life, starting with high school. Mrs. Sanderson, who gave a farm boy a love of poetry and the arts. To Fred Wilson, my soil science professor who actually made dirt interesting. To Professor Don Thane, who relentlessly challenged us to think like the CEO, and to Professors Nick Fry and David Layton, who inspired me to pursue a career in marketing. These are to name but a few. Thank you. Speaking to you today has to be one of the most challenging assignments in my life. My first thought, what could I possibly say that would be of interest to the young, freshly minted social science and humanity graduates at Western? As I thought about it, I resolved that my advice would not suffer the same fate as it has apparently met in the past. According to one of my daughters, I don't have to worry about my advice going in one ear and out the other, because she says it won't go in the first place. So after approaching the after searching for high and low for special pearls of wisdom, I came to the conclusion that maybe the best thing I could do would be share with you some of my memories of my life to this point and what they have meant to me. I was raised on a mixed grain and cattle farm in rural Manitoba. I went to a one-room country schoolhouse for grades 1 to 8. I guess you could say that it took me 8 years to get out of my first classroom. Early life was focused on school and lots of chores around the farm. I have an identical twin brother who was and still is my best friend. Both of us were extremely proud to be the sons of Jack-Triggs, one of the more progressive farmers in the area. He had a reputation for being an excellent farmer with high integrity, a strong work ethic, and an even stronger commitment to the community. Throughout high school, my brother and I were both focused on farming when we graduated. Indeed, we were looking forward to building the small family farm into an even more successful enterprise. As it happened, this was not to be. My father was in partnership with his brother, who unfortunately developed very poor health. At a family meeting, we decided that one of us, either my brother or myself, had to leave home and seek a career outside the farm. As neither of us wanted to leave, my father took 2 matches of different lengths and we each drew. I got the short straw. I lost, or so I thought. Some money I'd saved from odd jobs through high school was just enough for tuition, which you will find interesting. Tuition that year was $325. And together with scholarships and bursaries, I was able to see my way into enrolling at the University of Manitoba Bachelor of Science in Agriculture program. I share this rather personal story with you to make a point. Even though life may deal you surprises and now and then the odd nasty curveball, what looks like a nasty curveball could in fact be the best pitch you've ever seen. You have to get in the batter's box. You have to play it to find out. We graduated in an era of multiple job opportunities for every graduate. Many of us had the luxury of choosing between several options in the agricultural industry. While offered an NRC scholarship to do a master's in economics, I chose acceptance to the MBA program at Western, now the Ivy School of Business, even though there was no financial support. While I'd left the family farm, I still was hanging on to the idea of someday having my own family business. I chose the MBA because I thought it would prepare me for what I really wanted to do in the long term. And I was very fortunate that my new bride was able to obtain a teaching job at Breslin College to pull her hubby through. I would also like to recognize and thank my 3 daughters, Andrea, Katie, and Sarah. You have all been a source of zesty, vibrant inspiration, advice, and support. To you, my wife Elaine, you have a big chunk of this. You are central to everything that I've achieved. Words fail me when I try to describe how blessed I have been to have had you as my wife and partner for the last 52 years. I am so proud to share this recognition with you. Pursuing a career in the Canadian wine industry was not high on the charts of the most aspiring marketing or financial entrepreneurs in the 1960s. At that time, the industry was known for producing substandard wines, as Dr. Beamish had said, and losing market share to imports. Paraphrasing the words of John F. Kennedy, it was not about what was, but about what it could be. With a plan to convert the vineyards to more market-desirable varieties, with a plan to introduce world-class winemaking technology, with a merger and acquisition strategy to develop competitive world-class economies of scale, and with a global executive recruiting program, Jackson-Triggs and ultimately Vincor International was born. An LBO of Labatt's unwanted Canadian wine business was quarterbacked by 26 employee partners in 1989 to become Vincor, which by 2016 had grown into the fourth largest winery in North America with 2,250 employees on 5 continents, annual turnover of over $650 million, and an operating profit per year of just shy of $100 million. I shared and celebrated this with our founding partners, most notably Alan Jackson, Richard Jones, Roger Provost, and the late Bob Luba. So what? This dramatic change in the Canadian wine industry was in fact a major disruption in the industry at that time. Success came at a price. Inefficient wineries making inferior products were sold. Vineyards replanted, and new technology was brought to bear. This brings me to an important point. Today, we see disruptive forces creating major change in many industries, whether it be the internet, technology, or climate-driven. While these changes are creating added value to our standard of living as a whole, we are at risk of many people being left behind. As industries and their outdated technologies are abandoned, we need to safeguard that Canadians, Canada, and our business community have the training and redevelopment programs in place to ensure that those impacted can bounce back on their feet in the new paradigm. We need to be vigilant so that all citizens share in our prosperity. I cannot help but raise a few issues about the Canadian wine industry, given that it is so dear to my heart. The wine industry is and will continue to be one of the first industries to be impacted by climate warming. As citizens of this planet, and as David Suzuki has so passionately articulated, we all share a very real concern over the long-term effects of global warming. But as grape farmers, we are doubly concerned about the impact of change in the weather on our vineyards and on the final wine. There is some good news. The wine industry in Canada is increasingly at the forefront of developing renewable, sustainable technologies and, wherever possible, organic agricultural solutions. Culmina Family Estate Winery, on which we started development in 2007, is no exception. At this point in time, Culmina does not use insecticides, pesticides, or herbicides. We are doing this not only as custodians of the land for our grandchildren, and hopefully their grandchildren, but also in the hope that our wines will better express the unique character of the terroir. We appreciate the opportunity to be a pioneering member of Salmon Safe, a program which safeguards the watershed and resultant spawning beds of the salmon in the Okanagan River. The spawning in the Okanagan River has grown from about 1,000 fish 12 years ago to just over 100,000 last year. While Culmina is pursuing sustainability programs such as electric cars and organic farming, we are only scratching the surface of what has to be done. We need to do much more if we are able to be successful in reversing the trend to global warming. While our universities and research institutions can and will clearly assist, we need every one of you, every consumer, to continue to contribute. I would now like to change gears a bit and talk to you on a more personal level. You are going out into the world that is evolving and changing at a rapid rate. You are about to graduate with skills from one of the finest universities in Canada. Skills in communication, planning, technology, and problem solving that you have developed at the University of Western Ontario will hold you in good stead. Perhaps I could share some principles that I have found invaluable to me along my journey. Pick people that you can learn from. You will learn more from one really talented person than from 10 that are just going through the motions. Find these people, search them out, find ways to work with them or for them. You have heard many say that you learn more by listening than by talking. I would take it one step further and say you learn even more by asking questions. Lots of questions, even when some of them seem a little dumb at the time. Think big and small at the same time. By this, I mean that it's important to always have a bigger vision of what you are really trying to do in the long term, even though this is often at odds and fights for your time as you're trying very hard to manage the day-to-day detail in your job. As you approach all facets of your life, try to set your standards at the highest level. Ask yourself, is this what a global leader would do? Whether you're talking about, for example, an ethical issue or a customer service issue. If you start by setting high standards on every individual decision, the road to excellence becomes an easy one. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Experience is manufactured from the learning we get by making mistakes. The more you manufacture, the smarter and wiser you become. Protect your integrity. No one else will do that for you. I can still hear my grandmother saying, "Your reputation is like the linen. It is so easy to soil and stain, it is impossible to get clean." It is all about the people. By developing and supporting your large cadre of relationships, you have a strong base on which to grow. And most importantly, don't hog the success. Share the credit with your team members. It will come back to you 10 times over. In closing, as a graduate of this fine university, you are already a winner. Be brave. Stand up to those who might suggest that you are reaching too high, or to those who tell you it cannot be done. Follow your passion. Your DNA knows where you are world class. You only have to pursue it with passion. It is clear that we are indeed very fortunate to live and work in this fabulous country of Canada. Invest in it. Invest in your continuing education. Invest in your alma mater. Invest in your community and in your family. And above all else, invest in this socially tolerant, democratic country that we're all so proud of. Thank you.